What up, Tag Nation? So, in the great and wise words of one Lauren Hill, it can all be so simple, but you rather make it hard. And in the wise words of Usher Raymond, situations will arise in our lives, but you got to be smart about it. And in the wise words of Smash Mouth, somebody once told me the world was going to roll me, and I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Rest in
All
peace, Steve
right.
Harwell. And if you want to know what we're talking about, we'll let you know after the intro.
Free fall as I dive through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up the climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama, I don't really wanna.
Now, don't be alarmed. I know y'all saw that it was Dizzle's intro, but this is going to be a Dizzle moment right now with the Bang Bang Gang, myself, ScooterRay, and of course, the IWC's heartthrob, the heartbreaker, the the switchblade of this group, Jaeger Bombastic, so fantastic. All right, so we're here to discuss it. We're here to talk about it. I'm throwing it up there. The curious case of CM Punk. This is a very, very, very unique situation here. So, as we know, 2 years ago, CM Punk, also known as Phil Brooks, returned to AEW. And it was, I will say, maybe in modern times, the most anticipated wrestling comeback ever.
Yeah.
I mean, many people was waiting for Philly Phil to return. He was going away for 7 years. He would pop up here and there. You know, he had a small stint in UFC. He had a small stint writing for Drax the Destroyer and Marvel. You know, he was just doing little things here and there. He even got hired on Fox Sports 1 WWE show, and it was like, okay. But, you know, it was never nothing truly in ring. Then here comes AEW. And they were like, hey, we got a surprise for y'all. The best in the world is coming back. And live on Rampage, CM Punk shows up. And to be perfectly honest with you, it all seemed like sunshine, rainbows when it first started. Then we get to All Out 2022, also known as Brawl Out. And
Such a great pay-per-view. They got so eclipsed by
yeah,
this.
and from that, if by now you don't know what happened at Brawl Out, CM Punk famously called out Colt Cabana. He famously called out Adam Hangman Page, famously called out Kenny Omega, Matt Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks. He was saying that he's working with a bunch of children. He's a tired old man.
Target.
Yeah, all of these negative things. And from said media
Also
group.
said,
oh, go ahead.
and also said in particular to Hangman, the youth or the younger talent don't want to listen to us older guys, or they don't want to take advice from us, or like shit like that. Because like, again, these people are self-made as far as getting themselves over like this in the wrestling business.
Which, put a pin in that, because I have notes about that. So definitely put a pin in that self-made thing.
Fair. Okay.
So with that being said, like Jaeger just alluded to, All Out, nobody truly remembers what happened at All Out 2022.
Pieces.
Other than CM Punk winning the title from Jon Moxley, that's really about it. Oh, and the Elite winning the Trios titles.
Or was that Revolution?
What?
Nah. I'm trying to remember when Adam Cole debuted.
I can't remember. Oh,
I'm thinking that it might have been that All Out.
It might have been. But
Anyways,
so subsequently, From that, CM Punk was suspended.
Yeah.
The Elite was suspended. They had to relinquish the titles. Tournaments, blah blah blah. CM Punk comes back. Eventually, he wins the title back. Gets hurt, loses it back to Moxley. Just some weirdness. Just weirdness.
Yeah.
So CM Punk, in retrospect, has been gone virtually a year. When
Yeah.
Tony Khan announced his Collision, he famously said that, hey, CM Punk will be featured on Collision. So it was like, okay, cool. They figured out a way to keep CM Punk featured. He was going to be on
Mhm.
Collision for the most part. The Elite was going to be on Dynamite, maybe even Rampage. So once again, what was a black eye healed. It was healing because the Elite can stay over here. CM Punk can stay over here.
Mhm.
Then, of course, we just can't have good things in the world.
Have nice things, man.
There was issues we was hearing. Then it led to All In 2023, the legendary wrestling show, which it didn't get overshadowed necessarily, but once again,
It's a pretty big cherry on top of it.
there's another black eye
Yeah.
on a major pay-per-view. The biggest show, the biggest wrestling show to date, has if it's not a full black eye, it's definitely some bruising. There's definitely some bruising. And if you don't know what we're talking about there was reports and pretty much confirmed that Jack Perry versus Hook. Jack Perry famously tapped on the windshield of the limo. This is real glass. Cry me a river. Anybody who heard that was kind of like, that's an interesting thing to say.
Hmm.
Hmm,
Or some
okay.
people just straight up missed it, like myself.
I heard it because I saw it, but it was like, that's an interesting thing to say. Then, pretty much day after the show, hell, I don't even think everybody was home yet. I don't even think the fans.
We didn't even make it to fucking Dynamite.
I don't even think the fans fully made it home yet. Like for the fans who might have flew out to London, they probably wasn't even home yet. We get word that CM Punk and Jack Perry had a scuffle at All In over that statement because hey, at Collision, we don't do that on my show on Collision. You can take that behavior to Dynamite, but we don't do things like that on Collision. So it was like, okay. Then
But
it led to the fact that now, per reports, actually, no, that per reports from Tony Khan himself, Jack Perry is currently indefinitely suspended. And we just knew CM Punk was suspended. Fast forward to All Out Week in Chicago. We had Dynamite, we had Rampage, we had Collision. Right before, maybe 2-3 hours before Collision, Tony Khan releases a statement in a video saying, hey, we basically firing Phil Brooks. He's no longer with the company.
terminated
Due
him
to a committee, due to this, due to that,
due to legal suggestion
due to legal suggestion, Philly
or legal
Phil,
advice, whatever.
Chicago made, Chicago Phil, CM Punk is no longer with the company. Now, of course, the intriguing case was you did this before Collision and you're doing this before the pay-per-view. But luckily, it worked out. The crowd didn't truly turn on AEW. It kind of showed that AEW is bigger than CM Punk, even if we are in Chicago. So now we're here. I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate because before this, I've heard Jim Cornette and Brian Last did a special little 1 hour little thing discussing the situation.
Oh, okay.
And we definitely been critical of Phil, especially the heartthrob right here. So I'm gonna stop talking for a little bit and let the switchblade of the Bang Bang game let you know how he's feel about Philly Phil.
All right. Look, it's almost like sad that I'm actually right on this as far as Phil needing to go, that he's been problematic and everything. Because
Mhm.
when he first fucking joined, I was excited. I was actually excited. I was like, this guy who is not afraid to drop some pipe bombs every now and then to get some like flair, like the guy who's not afraid to call shit out to get the crowd on their fucking feet. Loved that in WWE, where it's a fucking corporation that's been established for years and years by the time he does that shit. When you want to start making a scene and making mess in your personal life and letting it blur the lines between kayfabe and IRL with a company that's in its infancy, let's be real. This is a promotion that needs every bit of positivity it can get.
Because with that being said too, the only thing that has helped the company is the fact that the Khan family are billionaires.
Yes.
Had it not been for that,
like, not sure how they would fare, without Tony Khan's money backing them up and paying a lot of it. So, with the fact that they're probably seeing losses until, I don't know, 5 years in, probably. I'll say 4 years optimistically, which is what they're approaching, but 5 years realistically.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't be fucking around like this with this company. Like, a lot of people have been trying to tell me that like this whole shit with Jack Perry and Tony Khan would have been settled in the locker room. They would have had a fight and then they would have been done with it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, that's cool in the Attitude Era or whatever, when you can actually get like separate the lines between the kayfabe and real life. But now everybody's got an Instagram. Everybody's got a fucking Twitch or Twitter or whatever the fuck else that can bring it, this shit. Everybody's got a goddamn camera in their hands.
Facts.
You can't, the lines of reality are now blurred. Like you can't, but you gotta like do your best to separate your personal shit that you actually have a problem with the shoot shit that you're doing to push a story.
Facts.
And yeah, like Phil, you could have talked to fucking Hangman, like you said it yourself in the fucking media scrum. You didn't have to go to the fucking public about that shit. You could have settled that all behind the scenes if you really wanted to actually do something. But no, you wanted to bitch and make it public and make them look like the assholes when you're the one that's kicking down the door and taking a shit on the carpet.
Yeah, if you put it that way, yeah.
like maybe Tony Khan wanted you back, and maybe he did offer you money that was too good to pass up after you've been fucking gone for 7 years. Or maybe you did really love and miss the business, and yeah, you wanted to go to a company that you could believe in. Because what the fuck, these guys that you hate so much love Chicago so much that they hosted the very first All In there. They hosted a lot of firsts in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, and I mean, to the fans that are flipping off the Bucks during their match, we can get into that later, but y'all are fucking clowns. But I mean, I'm so glad that the Bucks ate that shit up though. But getting off topic. Yeah, you can't blur the lines like that anymore. Or you can't like have the clearly defined lines like that anymore. And I'm trying to get back on track. And yeah, you're almost killing the baby in the cradle when you show that they're having this many problems, especially because you keep showing up. But the thing is, you became the common factor that was happening in these shit, and well, especially with this.
Just to interrupt you for a little bit, because
you're good. You're good.
The 3 years prior to Brawl Out last year, what we only knew what Big Swole calling out Tony Khan. That was like the only thing.
Yeah, there was like the only bit.
And
otherwise, everybody else was happy.
And maybe the whole Cody and the Elite kind of falling out, but still, even that was still professionally done. It wasn't like we heard reports that Cody was fist fighting the Bucks and came backstage. No, it was just that
Yeah.
Cody was like, "I'm out."
If there have been any discrepancies, like they say that maybe talent hasn't been getting utilized as well as they like wanted to when they first joined the company,
Mhm.
or something like that, or like what is it like? They said the worst news that I heard is that they'll just not re up you on your contract when it comes due.
That's it.
Like
Like
that's
we wasn't
like other than
hearing.
Big Swole's complaint, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we wasn't
now
hearing nothing wild until Brawl Out.
yeah, you didn't hear any of that shit until one Phil Brooks started showing up and is trying to like spread all this shit, which
Mhm.
apparently isn't even shit. Like, but anyways, like I don't know the full story with the Elite and everything with Cole Cabana and Phil. Like, I mean, obviously we don't have all the facts, but that's so fucking all old now at this point.
Yeah.
And now we have to like talk about Brawl In, and Jack Perry has to get fucking suspended because Punk can't keep a lid on himself. Punk, even then, I gotta agree with what Dizzle said with us when we were talking before. That had Punk not decided to lunge at the boss, he may very well have like kept his job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe been suspended for another 4 months or whatever the fuck. Maybe drop that real championship or whatever the fuck he calls it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he probably would have been suspended and then came back yet again, and then we would get probably another fucking uproar of fans. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but dude, you're just so much like no, obviously not worth the trouble.
Don't
Oh,
worry.
this guy.
Don't hold on.
Oh,
Hold on.
this
Don't
guy.
worry. Don't worry. Once we're done with this special part, we will address our new 7-time champion.
Oh, this guy.
Sorry, 6-time. 6-time
I was saying,
champion.
don't give him that. Hold on a second. Yeah.
6-time champion. We will address Mr. 6-time in a moment. But as of now, we're discussing the whole CM Punk situation. I'm letting Jaeger get his bars off, and then I'm gonna give cliff notes to what Jim Cornette and Brian Last was saying about the situation as well.
I have something to say about those.
Cornette.
Your volume is a little low.
Mine?
No, Dizzle.
Yeah, Dizzle's. Yeah.
Yeah, Dizzle's volume is low.
All right,
But
how about now? We're good. We're good.
Go ahead,
it's like
Jaeger.
in my ear canal. Whoa, man. No, man. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, man. But I mean, it's a nice little pat on the back to know that I was right about Phil not needing to come back. Like seeing that he was more trouble than he's worth. I agreed with like as I was mentioning, and as I was speaking about Dizzle, he went and showed up. But
Right.
yeah, his point on, yeah, he may very well have been able to keep his job had he not attacked CK.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
and honestly, it would have been just another complaint from me that they didn't fire him yet. But you know what? I'm just gonna say firing him was the best choice. He's more trouble than he's worth, and he's been proving that every time he comes back.
yeah.
Yeah, done.
All right. So to play a little devil's advocate, Brian Last and Jim Cornette did like a little hour-long little discussion talking about it. And to kind of give some cliff notes and some story beats behind it, they did discuss. Well, Brian asked Jim what would have done with the Jack Perry and Punk situation. He said, first and foremost, he probably would have, of course, broke them up, blah, blah, blah. But after Punk would have had his match, he would have brought them both since, Punk went on right after. He said he would have brought them to a room and been like, hey, what's happening here? Like, let's settle this shit. And, of course, in Jim Cornette's head, he's like, hey, Perry, you need to realize, though you are a rising star, this and the third, you're not him. He's my money. He's my draw. He's my quote unquote golden goose at the moment. So I'm gonna choose my golden goose over you. Basically, I'm gonna choose the man who's gonna make me money over you. Now, he said, since we're in this room, if y'all feel like y'all still got some indiscretions y'all want to let out, fight this shit out now, I guess. But dead this shit right now. Then after that, he would have sent both of them home. So I'll let y'all speak to that first.
I'll let Dizzle hit it.
All right. The thing with Cornette and Brian Last, like normally I'm usually 50-50 when they have their takes on a few things. One thing I will disagree with wholeheartedly with Cornette, because he is basically, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean it in any disrespect, he's a CM Punk shill. You know, and I say that because he's a shill for the old school, and I understand that. You know, you can't let that bias go, especially when you were intertwined within all that during that time. So it's hard for you to let that go. There's an inherent bias there. Now, the problem that I have is that you can't make an argument for one and not make an argument for the other. You can't, because that's the one thing Cornette's doing, because he's making it seem as though CM Punk is your money guy, which is fine. You know, he is a draw, but that's not to say that Perry can't be a draw. That's not to say that MJF isn't a bigger draw than CM Punk will ever be at some point in time. The problem I have is that you sit here and you basically make every excuse as to why CM Punk can do everything he can because you don't like AEW. And again, that's fine. That's your bias. You have your opinion. That's cool. But at the same time, as a businessman, you have to understand that if AEW has been running this fine without CM Punk, understandable that CM Punk got his money when he came in, that was going to happen no matter wherever CM Punk went. It just happened to be AEW.
Yeah.
So the problem I have is that with the take that Cornette has, he takes his bias and he makes it seem as though that's going to be gospel, as if Tony Khan is wrong in every way fucking possible. I made the video stating that TK is fanboying over CM Punk, and he's allowing that to make the wrong decisions for him. Now, with this, when he came out with the video about addressing the whole Punk situation, I think that was perfect. I think him putting his foot down and letting Punk go, regardless of who they say, if he listened to somebody else or if he made the decision himself, doesn't matter. He pulled the trigger, and that's what it was. So I think that is going to set the standard, and that's going to set a precedence moving forward, i.e., All In Scrum, when MJF was talking about the boys in the back. MJF came off like a leader, like a locker room leader. He may not be that right now, but he is on his way to being that. We all know that Jericho, Mox, and Danielson are the locker room leaders right now in AEW. I just didn't agree with Cornette's take. I think him and Brian Last, because they have their issues with AEW, I personally don't think that they should be commenting on what they're doing unless it's coming from a middle ground where they can objectively see it. Yeah, we got biases all day. I have my bias against Charlotte Flair. I can recognize her in-ring ability, but I can also say, hey, I don't fuck with Charlotte like that.
Yeah.
But it's that's the only thing I disagree with there. The CM Punk stuff, yeah, we've all said it ad nauseum. He's a draw. We get it. He makes money, but
he's costing them at this point.
He's you gotta, and this is the main thing about it, is the fact that All In should have been touted as the biggest show possibly this year for professional wrestling. But because of this stuff with CM Punk that happened, that overshadowed everything, because everybody's talking about that and what he did versus how big the show was. And that becomes a problem and a disservice to everybody that worked their asses off at All In. So regardless of how he felt about Perry, it's still hypocritical, because you can't sit here and then get mad at him for saying what he said about the glass thing when you went to business for yourself and did the whole Hangman Page shit in the middle of the ring when you came back, and because you felt bad because he said something. You know, you can't expect not to get a receipt if you literally stated that was Hangman's receipt. So it's stupid. It's stupid. So But that's my 2 cents on it. I already said I wasn't going to talk about the CM Punk stuff. And,
okay. Well,
and yeah.
So let me ask this then. It's still in the vein, but so another thing that they were saying in there was essentially it seemed like everybody was against Phil because you had the elite, the people who were friends with the Cucamonga kids, as he called them. So of course, everybody who was going to truly side with the Cucamonga kids and be anti-Punk. So that was another point they brought up, which ties into Dizzle's point of you can't really say what you want to say when you're going to be more on Punk side. When you're not coming from down the middle fair side, of course you're going to automatically default to that. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing that I thought of, which brings back what Yeager said earlier, I understand we have Jericho. I understand we have Danielson. I understand we have Mox. We have Punk. We had Cody. But you can't deny the fact that we got our own selves over. Yeah. No, we didn't get our own selves over in a worldwide setting like WWE, but we made ourselves names ourselves. So for y'all to, or for even him to come in and be like, no, you in a sense have to listen to me, or you in a sense have to, quote unquote, what's the word I want to use, or phrase I want to, like, play ball in a sense. Then it's like, I can see why somebody like Hangman can say, yeah, it's hard for me to take advice. I got my own self over. Yeah. Like, I did it my way. So if my way is working, no, there's no disrespect from taking advice from elders and forefathers, but I did it my way. And it's been working. So that's another situation too.
Okay. Yeah. So I agree with every bit of that. And this kind of goes into kind of like what we all grew up on in terms of professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. We all know that there were beefs within professional wrestling across the board, but it wasn't stuff that was talked about, mainly because we didn't have a bunch of internet shit and dirt sheets.
Reporting.
So we would have never really known. And at the same time, they operated in a way to where it's like, yeah, we may have beef, but we got to work together. And it was all about the business, keeping kayfabe, so on and so forth. So you wouldn't know who was beefing with who. Now, with this, all biases need to go away. Like, regardless, like even whether you were anti-Punk or for Punk, you still under the same umbrella. You're trying to get a company over, so regardless of who is fucking with who, the main objective should be, okay, well, we need to make sure AEW looks good. We need to make sure that, matter of fact, same thing that MJF said, there's going to be a lot of infighting, but at the end of the day, we're here for this company. We're here to put out the best show, period. Now, in terms of not following advice, I'm more of the type where it's like, hey, you learn by doing. You make your mistakes. If it doesn't work out, then at least you can look and be like, you know what? Hey, told you not to do it, but whatever. Like if Perry wanted to go use real glass and he got hurt, and everybody said, hey, don't do it. All right, cool.
But he does it, yeah.
But he does it and gets hurt, and it's like, yeah, well, we told you. Well, now you know better.
Hey, that was your dumbass fault.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the whole Punk situation rubbed me the wrong way, because it was like Perry was cleared to use real glass. Punk interjected himself into that to just basically be like, hey, don't do it. Punk is not the type of person to be giving advice at that level. If it came from a Mox, if it came from a Jericho, if it came from a Danielson, it would have come off a lot differently, because they know how to speak to people.
Not only that, he's trying to come in as a locker room leader after he's already been like fighting with I don't want to say the bosses, but the EVPs.
Mhm.
Like he's already been seen as like somebody that's like either a troublemaker or somebody who's like somebody that's stirring shit up.
Yeah, it comes from
Yeah.
because the
So
thing is
like, so why would you want to like assume control like that over a whole damn show? My question is, no. So hold on. I'm sorry to get us
no,
off
you're
the
good. No, you're
topic,
good. You're good. You're
but
good.
this is still about Phil. When he got like, it was reported that when he was terminated, him and his contracts, plural, they was said he had an employee contract and a talent contract. I want to know what that employee contract was.
Probably some creative direction over Collision.
More than likely.
Maybe like a producer type situation as well. So probably something like that.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, why the hell did he feel like he could give that decision on whether or not to use real glass for a match that he wasn't even in, you know?
Well, I guess the way he's looking at it, and this is, I guess, the devil advocate part too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in his head, we were going to make Collision different from Rampage and different from Dynamite. We was going to have Collision as a different feel, and with Collision, like, yes, it's still an AEW show, but we want to give you reasons to come watch us on Saturday night because we discussed it. We having a show on Saturday night, weekly show. We're kind of behind the 8 ball already because it's Saturday night, but we wanted to give a different feel because if Collision is just an extension of Rampage or Collision is just an extension of Dynamite, we're not going to retain people's attention.
Yeah.
So True. If we give it a different feel, then people might come back. So in his head, if we're doing glass spots, if we're doing stuff like that, then they might as well just tune in to Dynamite when they can see all of that type of stuff.
And that's the crazy thing about it is because anytime I watched Collision, Punk was never a defining factor on Collision for me whenever I watch it. Like, yeah, it's cool that he's there, but watching it, I was more invested with the fact that, hey, the trios titles are exclusively on here. Right now, we only got the tag titles exclusively on here for the time being. You get to see certain professionals like a House of Black, like a Miro, like an Andrade, like a Ricky Starks, like a Hobbs. You get to see the Acclaim. That was a selling point enough for me because it was a pseudo brand split that we weren't getting from WWE, and they operated it as such. CM Punk was just a byproduct of, I would say, jumping it off the ground, but he wasn't a reason for me to be like, I'm going to stick around and watch it next week to see what happens here. He just happened to be there. And it could have been differently for other people, I'm sure. But for me personally, that's the reason when I watched it, I never thought, oh shit, only place I can watch CM Punk.
Yeah, makes sense too. Another point. Oh, go ahead, Jaeger.
I was just making a cheap shot. Like, yeah, I didn't care.
Another point Cornette and Last brought up was at root, they blamed Tony Khan for all of this. That Tony Khan should have took control of the situation from last year, but since he really didn't, it kind of just ran this course to what we have now. So they said that they definitely
gotcha.
Yeah, they definitely put blame on Tony Khan too. That Tony Khan should have, wrangled in the situation and basically deaded this beef between the Elite and Punk. Then we probably wouldn't have even got, Punk versus Perry or Punk versus Nemeth or anything like that. But they do say that they do place blame on Tony Khan too. That he's not clean in this situation.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I agree with that. But at the same time, this is still primarily a Punk situation. Tony should have reined in Punk.
Yes.
Because the thing is, Punk was the only outlier in this. When this stuff with the brawl out happened last year, between that point and this point here, you didn't hear shit about any issues with anybody within the elite. The only issue that you heard about was probably the stuff with Andrade and Guevara and Kingston and Guevara.
Yeah.
No, outside of there was rarely any issues that had happened within AEW.
Damn.
That was on this level. Once Punk came back, magnitude of just bullshit happening. Perry and Punk. Now you hear Regal Punk. Then Nemeth Punk. Punk. Tony is part of that issue, but it's only because he didn't rein in Punk. He allowed Punk too many allowances to do what he wanted to do versus sorry. Let me take half of that back because I'm pretty sure Tony had the conversation. Everybody had a conversation with everybody that was involved in that. But it's up to Punk, the elite, to operate in a professional manner. Punk did not do so. The elite, Kenny, Bucks, Hangman, they're all perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
They all took whatever punishment they had, came back, and operated business as usual.
They never even said name.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Punk came back with a chip on his shoulder.
Of course.
And he's had that chip on his shoulder from everything. And so right now, he's just taking it out on everybody. I don't think this is just about the whole all out situation. I think this is about everything that he's been dealing with. And so now he has an outlet to just, yeah.
Okay. Now another point they brought up, which I thought was interesting. Apparently, there's rumors going around that there was supposed to be a meeting before All In. There was supposed to be a meeting in Atlanta between Punk, Tony Khan, and the Elite to kind of hash things out and nip this all in the bud. Apparently, the meeting got canceled. Apparently, nobody told Punk. So Punk was apparently stranded in Atlanta. Then had to figure out how to, from Atlanta, get to London and all of these things. So they saying that maybe Punk might have had a little more agitation because he was supposed to have this meeting with Tony and the Elite that never went down. So, but in my personal opinion, I don't think everything would have been settled in that little supposed meeting.
If there was even going to be a meeting.
If there was going to be one, I don't think, it would have been like, okay, I'm good now. I still think there would have been some harboring of feelings even after that.
Regardless. Yeah, I don't think it would have been a very productive meeting. Just I mean, hopefully it would have been something good because with Phil, but I don't know, man. I don't think it would have ended well.
Same.
I'll leave it at this as far as my take on the whole Punk situation. I would like to give Punk the benefit of the doubt. However, depending on how this whole response is going to go, because Punk is supposed to give a response. I don't know if it's going to be via text or messaging on whatever social media platform, or if it's going to be in the form of an interview. But whatever his response is to this,
he has a podcast he's talked about wrestling stuff on.
So we'll see what happens. So his response to this whole situation is what's going to dictate whether I keep that benefit of the doubt or just say, fuck him. So
understandable. All right, last question, and we can move on. Do we see him going back to the E?
Nope. Nope. No.
Do you see
that he wants him?
Do you even see him even being involved in wrestling?
That I give that 70-30. 30 on yes, 70 on no.
I see him doing local stuff in Chicago, if anything, like maybe some popping up on some indie shows or something to that magnitude.
Just run the indie circuit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit, he has to go up against Matt Cardona.
Yeah.
You know,
does he have like every belt right now?
You know, I see something like that, but yeah. So, all right, well, there you have it. You know, the curious case of one Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk, who is now gone from AEW, and hopefully the black eyes can heal now. You know, hopefully the black eyes can heal, the company can move forward and keep doing what they do best, and that's, you know, entertain.
Yeah.
Dollars make a way to make a change. Gotta be insane to make them same mistakes again. So I'm switching lane to lane. Pray to